I had one of those moments, that you have in life where you never forget it. And for me, it was sitting on my back patio watching my first county commission meeting that I'd ever seen in my life. My wife was sitting next to me. I can visualize it like I'm sitting there right now. And I saw those commissioners discuss an out-of-control pandemic in about 10 minutes and then pass the first mandatory mask mandate in the state of Florida that was county-wide. And something just grabbed me in a almost spiritual way. I was so offended. And I looked at my wife and I said, there's no way that's constitutional. They can't tell us what to wear. They can't tell us we have to strap something to our head and wear it around. I mean, that's insane. Now, I had never practiced any constitutional or civil rights law in my entire career. I didn't even know where to start. But I fired off a demand letter to the county commission, hit the books, and within a week or two, I filed my very first complaint against any government entity. I didn't even know where to serve it. I mean, who do you give it to? The mayor? You put it in that little slot at the library where you return the books. I had to figure all that stuff out. And as I do with any case that has novel issues, I called my peers, right, for advice. And I told them what I was doing, and every single one of them said, Jeff, why are you throwing your career away over this? And it was a real gut check. I mean, these are people that I have profound respect for, who have decades more legal experience than I do. But I decided to push through and to tackle it. And the result of that one, which is sort of what put me into the middle of the hurricane, was we won. We won on appeal. We got the only appellate decision, as far as I know, in the entire country, finding that mandatory masking was presumptively unconstitutional. And so when people heard that I was willing to take these cases, and you remember we're talking about the summer of 2020, the peak of mask hysteria, right? Where, even asking the question about the masks would get you the response, you're literally killing grandma, right? You remember that. And so there were very few attorneys who, had any, real serious litigation track record that were willing to take these cases. So we started to get, all kinds of things. And, very quickly we challenged the vaccines. And on my first vaccine case, we won as far as I know, the first broad preliminary injunction against the government vaccine mandate in the entire country. We got death threats over that one. We removed a school board member who was about to pass a sweeping CRT-related transformation of the school district. We challenged one of the largest hospital chains in the country over its private vaccine mandate. And while we didn't get a preliminary injunction on that one, they immediately backed down after we got the verbal order from the judge, because it was so strong in recognizing the irrationality of the mandate. So this is all brand new territory for me, right? Completely unlike anything I've ever done. And I'm not used to being in the limelight. Now I'm being invited to talk, recently at the Moms for Liberty National Conference, right? My session with Joe Harding was right after Governor DeSantis spoke. And I mentioned AR-15s in an analogy. And, all across the country, newspapers were running stories about, Attorney Jeff Childers talks about AR-15s. And Tiffany Justice is the national co-chair for Moms for Liberty. She was on Dr. Phil the other day, and he asked her about what I said. I'm not used to that kind of stuff, right? I'm just a quiet, boutique, small-town attorney fighting over business contracts. I'm as surprised as anyone to be sitting right here talking to you.
Something you said really made me think. Everyone you reached out to, your peers, your learned peers, said, why are you throwing your career away? Why was that so obvious to them, do you think, that this is what was happening?
Wow, that's a really good question. They all, or almost all, followed that comment up with some remark like, this will all be over in a few weeks or a few months. So I think there was a sort of a dual recognition in the profession that this was politically dangerous, and that you could be even potentially disbarred. I think that's the implication, right? Throwing your career away means you're going to lose your bar license over this. Their conventional wisdom was just wait it out. But I didn't believe it was going to be over soon. I mean, it didn't even occur to me. To me, this mask thing seemed like just the beginning. And if they could get away with encroaching on our constitutional rights to that extent, dictating what we wear, then they were going to go to the next level. That seemed obvious to me. And it was not something that was obvious to my peers. My peers seemed to think it was, sort of politics as normal. If I could jump to a related story that I think is analogous to this, I also became involved with defending some high-profile folks in the January 6th committee investigations. And once again, because I've never represented anyone in who was the target of a congressional investigation before, I mean, that seems very serious. And so we're getting subpoenas and demands for depositions and things like that. And again, one of my superpowers is I'm a fast learner. So I have a lot of self-confidence that I can learn quickly, but you don't want to make a mistake. So I called my connections in DC and got references to, tall building attorneys who make $1,500 an hour and up, who normally represent folks in that situation. And all of them said, Jeff, this is just business as normal in DC. The commission is just going to write a report, and then this whole thing's going to blow over. And I said, I don't know if I believe that. I feel like they're collecting evidence for DOJ investigations. I feel like there are going to be criminal indictments coming based on all this information that the committee's scooping up that the DOJ couldn't get. Right? They don't have the same powers that Congress does. And all these attorneys in DC, these very highly paid guys who swim in that world, all told me, no, they'll never do that. It would be politically toxic for them to translate this into criminal indictments and criminal prosecutions. And so I stopped talking to them. And it's the same kind of groupthink, right, that I saw at the beginning with the masks. I don't know what it is. I can't explain it, because attorneys are very smart people. I mean, you have to go through law school, to pass the bar, to think on your feet in front of judges, to handle things that come up in a second. You have to be very intelligent and critical. You have to be a critical thinker. But there was no critical thinking being applied to these issues. And so I guess at bottom, I'm still, sort of baffled by the sort of ubiquitous thought process by most, conventional, what I call tall building attorneys or large firm attorneys, right?